Okay, video update. Tomorrow's big day. Tomorrow's Tuesday, June 1st. We're meeting at the Chambers in Old Town Cottonwood, which is next to Colt Cafe. Meeting starts at 6 o'clock. Please show up at 5:30. I'll be there at 5:30. The mayor has told me that he is going to forbid anybody from giving me their time, which I think is interesting, especially since the Cottonwood ordinance on public meetings says that the council may vote to give a person more time. It also says on the Cottonwood ordinance that it's 5 minutes. The mayor told me I'm gonna have 3 minutes. And so I have printed up all of the codes, all of the laws, all of the Arizona revised statutes, all of the international building codes, all of the Cottonwood city sewer policy, all of the Cottonwood ordinances. I've printed up every single thing, every law that they have broken into a less than 3 minute declaration. And so I need all of you to come because he's not gonna allow me to give the account of what has happened, and so you're going to be my voice for me. All you have to do is take the sheet of paper. It's all printed out for you, exactly what to say, but there's no way the council is going to find out. He's preventing me from sharing it with the council for more than 3 minutes, so that's okay. I got a crew. I know that there's a lot of you coming. My goal is to have between 60 to 100 people there. And I've already had a lot confirmed, more than what's going to fit inside, which will be interesting. So anyways, I also wanted to give you an update on the most common question that I've got is, what is the city's defense? This is obvious, okay? You posted the evidence, you posted all of the crimes that they committed, and we have the evidence. We can see what was done, we can see how it was done. This is obvious. We're not in law, but this is obvious that this is a violation and that they're in the wrong. So what could their defense possibly be of why they're saying they're not responsible? So I wanted to share with you, they are saying I'm time barred. So whenever you sue a city, there's requirements that you have to do. You have to sue a city within 180 days when the action accrues. And so what that means basically is once you realize that you're injured, you have to sue the city within 6 months. If you don't sue the city within 6 months after you realize that you've been injured, you're time barred. And I discovered the septic tank 3 years ago. And so they're saying that I'm time barred. However, and I sent them this, I sent them the transcript. I've told them this over and over again. Every time that I went into the building department and every time I spoke to the utilities operation manager, whose job it is to oversee city hookups, has told me that we are still connected to city sewer, even though we discovered a septic tank. And so I believed him. He's told me probably 4 times, 5 times that we're still connected to city sewer through the septic tank. The last time that I went in to talk to him about it was because we had a $2,000 water bill here at the buildings with no explanation of where the water came from, where it went, where a leak was. And 600 of that was a city sewer bill. And so I went in to talk to the utilities operation manager and asked that $600 be removed off my bill since I wasn't connected to city sewer since I have a septic tank. I asked him if I could record that conversation because I was still confused, and he said yes. So this is part of that conversation. They brought out their excavator and they dug up and they found a septic system. And they took the cameras down and we flushed from both of the buildings, and both of the buildings are going into the septic system, and they do not see anything other than the leach line leaving the septic system. So after that, I've been down several times, and I think probably left you some messages. Maybe we've talked on the phone.
A couple of years ago.
When I bought the building, yeah. So it's been a bit of a challenge because I'm continued to be told that I'm on sewer, and in this last water bill, we can't figure out what has happened of where 125,000 gallons of water went. So I had asked to find out what kind of meter we had to be able to call the meter company to see if there was ever any challenges with that particular meter of misreading, and I didn't get any answers on the kind of meter that we have. So I'm doing my best to try to pay what I can towards that bill, even though I don't feel
that I used that water because I can't figure out where it could have gone or come from or why it would have just stopped. But a big part of it, there's $600 of it that's sewer. And since I'm not on sewer, what I'm asking is if that could come off of my bill today, and then I would be able to pay the rest of it.
Yes, it would be. I don't know. You've already been raised with a break on the bill, significant. We do have permits here with the building department that you were tied into sewer. I gave you copies of that a couple of years ago. Roto-Rooter put in for the permits, showed the drawings that they did the tie-in to the sewer. Now,
No, Roto-Rooter said that. Okay, perfect. So
Oh crap.
part of the challenge
Sorry.
that I had prior to buying that building, I was told.
So you couldn't hear the entire recorded conversation because I just bumped it. But I want to get this video out tonight. So I will post that entire video online for you guys to be able to watch. And I do have the transcript from that conversation. Essentially, he said, no, he wasn't going to credit me back the $600 sewer bill. I am still connected to city sewer, and what they used to do back in the day was to go cheap. Rather than decommission the septic tank, they would run from the back of the septic tank to city sewer. And just because I discovered a septic tank doesn't mean I'm not connected to city sewer, and therefore I still have to continue to pay my bill. So it's a 16-minute recorded conversation that I've had with him. So the city is saying that's their only defense, that I'm time barred, that I should have, within 6 months of discovering the septic tank, sued them, because that's when I realized I was injured. Except for I have a recorded conversation, and this was one of like 4 conversations I've had with this gentleman and the building department saying that I'm still connected to city sewer. So if they're saying that I am time barred because of what I was told and what I was sent via email and what I recorded with the city manager, that I'm time barred, then that's fraud. They are implicating themselves on a second fraud charge, because you cannot give somebody false information, a misrepresentation that they rely upon. So I relied upon what he said. He said, you're still connected to city sewer through that. In my heart of hearts, I was like, my bullshit meter is strong. So my bullshit meter was like, bullshit, I'm not connected. But I had no way to prove it. And I tell you what, when we dug up the septic tank, so the only way we could prove it, and it says this in the video, is to dig up the septic tank, to dig up the leach field, which is underneath my parking lot, and run a camera down it and see if it's connected to city sewer. So I didn't have the money to do that, and I partially kind of believed him, and I was like, okay, we'll wait and see. If we don't have any more backups, then probably the septic flows through to city sewer. But then we started having backups again. I was able to save enough money after COVID, and we continued to have more and more backups to excavate it. So I excavated it 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago. And when they ran the camera down the back of the septic tank, I held my breath, because I'm like, oh shit, if it's connected, I don't have a case anymore. And it wasn't connected. It's not connected. And so obviously, to anybody who has half of a brain, can see that and can understand that the full realization of the injury happened not when I discovered the septic tank because of what I was told by the city, but when I unearthed the leach line, ran a camera down it, and proved definitively, one way or the other, that we're not connected to city sewer. And so I'm well within my time limit of 180 days. We're gonna win in court. There's no judge that's gonna let that stand. If they even try to argue that, they're implicating themselves on a second fraud charge. And fraud charges are no freaking joke. And there's 2 permits. So there will be a separate fraud charge for each permit. So they're already facing 2 fraud charges. If they implicate themselves again because of what the utilities director told me, that's 2 more fraud charges. So it's nonsensical. So that's the city's defense. That's it. That's the only reason they're not accepting responsibility, is because they say I'm time barred. So anyways, we're gonna go to city council tomorrow. We're gonna let them know what the violations are. We're going to ask them to compel the current administration to do their job. I will also post the Cottonwood fraud policy, and I will also post Cottonwood resolution number 2279. Both instruct the current administration. So I get this happened in 2007. Pretty much anybody in the current administration wasn't here in 2007. So I get it. It's not your fault. You didn't commit the fraud back in the day. You didn't falsify the records. I get it. However, the way you respond to reports of criminal violations within your organization, the way you follow the procedures now that you are required by law to do when fraud is discovered and when code violations are discovered, nobody has done. So our hope tomorrow is to compel the city council to require that the government officials do what they're supposed to do when fraud and code violations are reported, because as of yet they've done nothing. They said they won't report it, they won't look into the code violations, and they won't report the fraud because it's against themselves, and they're not willing to do that. However, there's nothing in law that protects them from having to report internal fraud. They're just as responsible to report fraud inside. And in fact, the fraud policy is an internal fraud policy if an employee discovers fraud happening within the city of Cottonwood. So, and it's a crime not to do it. It's a crime not to allow these things to continue is a crime. And so the current administration is implicated in a crime, and I have reported them to the Attorney General of Arizona. So anyways, if you're willing to read for me tomorrow, if you're willing to be my voice, if you're willing to stand with me and let the government know that fraud and corruption in our local Cottonwood government will not stand, not just for my sake, but for the sake of every single person in our community who is buying property, who is relying on public records, that we want them to know that fraud within the public records will never be tolerated, and that they must follow the law. So tomorrow we're meeting at 5:30. There might be paperwork that we have to fill out. So come see me there. And thank you so much for the dozens and dozens and dozens of people who have reached out to me and told me that they're coming. There are a bunch of carpools coming from Sedona. So if you're interested in hopping in one of those cars to come down, please do. And then afterwards, we're gonna go hang out in Cottonwood and celebrate community and standing together and fighting injustice and saving our studio. So thank you so much. I will see you all tomorrow. I have never been so excited in my life. Maybe before giving birth to my 2 children, I've been this excited, but I am thrilled to go tomorrow. But I need enough people to come so that we can get through all the violations, so that the council can really see what's up. So I love you and thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.